Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and I did a thing, and so we have a brand new MFF version 5.9.5 tier list. Now, hopefully, tons of things will change with the 5-year anniversary, like they did with the 3-year anniversary, like they did with the 2-year anniversary, not necessarily the 4-year anniversary. And the tier list will be, put upside down, turned on its head, and I will have to reevaluate the value of all these characters, and there's going to be amazing things. But I will say that right at the beginning, and I echoed this a lot in the last tier list video that I did. This is obviously different than the tier 3 ranking that I did recently because that was an infographic. I will be working on an infographic for a tier list like this, but it's going to take a lot longer because I have 216 heads to move around. So, yeah. But I said this in the last video for the tier list, that it's getting harder and harder, and it's getting less and less valuable to do a tier list like this. But in this case, I still wanted to do one because I had sort of a stopgap, a band-aid solution to the problem. I essentially, if you're looking at this, you're going to see, oh, the toilet tier got a lot bigger. Yes, I essentially moved a whole whack of characters from heroic tier into rare tier, and then I moved a whole bunch of characters from rare tier into advanced tier. I moved a bunch of characters from advanced tier into normal tier, and then I moved a bunch of normal tier characters into toilet tier. I didn't really have an amazing sort of thought process. I didn't spend hours on this. I don't think it's that important. Basically, what you need to know is that everything in rare tier down kind of sucks. The good thing, as you can see, is that is shrinking. The list of characters that suck in the game is shrinking. The thing is that the game is getting easier. That's the problem. Rather than the game getting challenging and characters getting better to meet that challenge, the game is steadily getting easier and easier so that more characters can participate at a reasonably high level. And that's kind of what we're seeing, especially with things like World Boss. So one example is Sabretooth. I had him much higher before, but lots of characters can do stage 99 now. Every character has access to 100% all defense down, so Sabretooth is just not as valuable. I mean, physical damage characters can kill Cull Obsidian right now, so you can't really value one particular type of damage for one particular type of boss as much before, so Sabretooth loses some value, but in general, characters have been gaining value. As far as what I denoted for toilet tier, it's basically a character that doesn't have a good leadership and doesn't have a support buff. So I actually moved up Phil Coulson because his support buff is so useful, but I generally docked points for characters that were only a leadership or basically nothing at all. Now, I understand that some people might value the leadership of, say, Jessica Jones for Alliance Conquest, but I think that is seriously pushing it. It is as niche as it gets. So, without further ado, I don't really want to get into the details of like, oh my god, you put Black Widow in heroic tier. I don't really, really, the only thing that matters in Marvel Future Fight, okay, because the game is really easy. Marvel Future Fight is a very easy game once you get through the once you sort of give birth to the RNG and once you sort of push all the RNG BS out and you get some characters under your belt, the game starts to get quite easy. It's a bit of a challenging and it's a bit of a slow climb up to like your first 6 months, your first year of playing, but after that, a lot of players will attest to this. Once you get that ball rolling, a lot of the content becomes much easier and much more accessible for your entire roster, for most of your roster. So basically what that means is the only thing you really want to care about is the characters in the first 3 tiers, Omega, Mythic, and Legendary. You will build up some of the characters in Heroic tier because you need them for specific team-ups, you need them for specific passives and supports like, Shuri, stuff like that. Or you want to complete a specific team like, Warriors of the Sky, you need Sunbird for the revive, or you just really like the character, or you need some more niche characters for Shadowland, like you need more villains, or you need more combat physical types, or whatever the case may be. But rare tier down, these characters have basically one thing that makes them valuable or less, right? Like somebody like Sif really doesn't do anything. She has no value. Rhino, I guess, is kind of like anti-reflect, anti-physical reflect for Conquest. Not really. Warwolf has the passive buff. Titania has the leadership. You sort of get what I'm saying. So these are like one-trick ponies, and then everything else on Heroic and up is a little bit more involved. And you got Baron Zemo there at the top of rare tier. Good job, buddy. Made a video about him recently. So let's get into it. Quick note here. I did rename Hawkeye to Ronin because of Nimrod. I thought it was a little bit confusing, and I thought players might think that I'm saying that Sentinel is Omega tier. He's not. He needs to have the Nimrod uniform to be Omega tier. Now, you're going to be asking yourself, what the hell, Alex? Nimrod, Omega tier? let me remind you, Omega Tier involves characters that can do very high levels of content in both PvP and PvE with one build. In Marvel Future Fight, unfortunately, hopefully not forever, but unfortunately for now, you have to switch obelisks for most characters if you want to compete in PvE and PvP. So for example, Wolverine, he's great in PvP with a CTP of Regen or possibly a CTP of Greed, but then he'll suck massively in World Boss and Shadowland and other content. I mean, not suck massively, but he will drop a lot of his value. He'll drop, 20, 30 stages in Shadowland. He'll drop 20, 30, 40 stages in World Boss. Conversely, if you give him a CTP of Rage, he's gonna jump up in those game modes, but he's gonna drop significantly in World Boss. That is the truth for 90-95% of characters in Marvel Future Fight. But there is a very small group of characters. As you can see here, there are 9 characters currently that can do the dance. They can do both dances with one build. Now, I will say this for Scarlet Witch specifically. Obviously, I don't have Scarlet Witch at tier 3 because your boy is sort of trying to give the middle finger to the Netmarble Monster devs because they've been screwing up the game, and they're, releasing a tier 3 after a Blast tier 3 after you reworked another Blast tier 3 and released another Blast tier 3 is basically the last thing we needed. So yeah, thanks to whoever out there did that. But I am encouraging, I will say this, I want to speak directly to the players who have Scarlet Witch tier 3. Hey, you handsome people of the internet, if you want to send me content that you've completed with Scarlet Witch tier 3, I mean like video content, I'm going to need to verify this with my eyes. I will use that. I can compile that into a video, and I actually want to make a video reacting to and sort of judging and measuring the value of Scarlet Witch. From what I've seen and from what I've talked to players that have her, she seems to be quite good. Not as good as Jean Grey, probably not as good as not as good as Jean Grey for PvP, not as good as Doctor Strange for PvE, but definitely able to do both. I believe a tier 3 Scarlet Witch was able to do stage 99 Ebony Maw with an obelisk. I've also heard, very high stages with a CTP of Authority. So again, a PvP build, able to do, high stages, 80, stuff like that. So that is very impressive. But yes, I do want to make a full Scarlet Witch video without tier 3ing my own Scarlet Witch because of my sort of moral battle with the Netmarble Monster devs. So if you out there want to send me content about her, I will give you full credit for your content, of course. Leave me your Twitter handle or your IGN or your Instagram or whatever you want to promote, and I will promote that for you with the clip, and then I will put those together into a 10-minute video, and we can sort of have like a discussion about tier 3 Scarlet Witch. I think that'll be a fun way to involve the community and not force me out of my free-to-play retirement. So that's why Scarlet Witch is on the list. Nimrod, I know because I've tested him. This boy is bad as hell. Okay, if you don't have a Nimrod, you might want to consider going out and getting him because he is absolutely disgusting. He is very, very good for PvP, which we've already shown in videos. And then his PvE potential is so good because of the fact that he can go to minus 75 or minus 100. It's at minus 75 baseline. With a Dr. Voodoo or White Fox lead. And you know what happens when you go to minus 100 in World Boss. The devs didn't fix that. Well, it's not a bug. They don't have to fix it. But yeah, anyways, he does massive damage, by the way. So you can do, again, into the 70s or 80s of World Boss with a PvP build. I never changed his build, full PvP, and I can easily do a stage 70 Cull Obsidian with him. That's how hard he hits with that all defense down. And his damage is just very good with his complete extinction. Really, really good damage. So yeah, Nimrod is definitely deserving of the Omega tier. The rest of the Omega tier does not change. It's interesting that besides Captain Marvel and Nimrod, every single character on this list is either native tier 2 1.5 times cost or native tier 2 double cost. So Netmarble Monster they've really been pushing the more expensive character meta the last like year and a half. For those of you also wondering during the video why I keep saying Netmarble Monster, I actually want to be a little bit more specific. It's not actually Netmarble. Netmarble is the company that owns Marvel Future Fight, that produces Marvel Future Fight. But the developer, the studio that's actually responsible for Marvel Future Fight is actually called Netmarble Monster. So you should refer to Netmarble Monster if you're making like articles and stuff like that, because they are technically the ones making the game. So, moving along, we have some other new characters here. Mystique, very, very strong. I don't know what else to say about Mystique. Really, really good. Obviously, with the support buff that gives you damage against heroes and villains. It's sort of the opposite of Colossus. She's going to be, and she's going to make a splash in PvP. The thing with characters that have awakening skills in PvP as well, for shitty autoplay content, they will do their skill as soon as it's available. So if you have a situation where, I don't know how it works with Conquest, if it's only on round 2, I don't know if it happens also on round 1. I know for the Warriors of the Sky, when they revive, as soon as they revive, they use their Awaken skill, which is really good. Now Mystique, I'm not sure if she does her Awaken skill at the very beginning of round 1 of something like Conquest, or if she does it at the very beginning of round 2. But when she does Perfect Deception, everything dies. It's massive damage, and it's actually really annoying for something like King of the Hill, where the characters do their Awaken skill right at the beginning, because Awakening skills have insane damage, and they also have iframe ignore. So really busted character, crazy all defense, accumulation. She basically has everything except healing, and because of that support buff, she's super good supporting in all content. She's one of the best supports in the game now, and she works on all world bosses. She works for all PvP. It's very, very good to have her. So she immediately spikes up to the top here. She's not very good on her own in PvP because she doesn't have iframes, but she's an amazing support a la Colossus. And then in PvE, she's very, very strong, as you've seen from content if you watch like not World Boss, but ABX videos, but also World Boss. Wolverine and Sabretooth, I just highlighted them because I moved Sabretooth down, and Wolverine got a little bit of a bump with his uniform. I still don't think he's much better than Mr. Fantastic. They can just flip-flop. It doesn't really matter. There's still a huge, there's still a huge gap between these 3 clowns and my boy Namor. Then we have the Blast class. This is basically the other big change. Yes, Mr. Sinister is down here. He's okay. He's nothing too special, but he's at the top of Heroic, which, Bishop, Vision, stuff like that. He's pretty good. He's honestly not as bad as people say. He's definitely not worth the money, though, if that's what you're wondering about getting a Bio Extreme subscription for him. But this is the big change here. Magneto and Professor X, 2 of the best Blast characters in the game now. Yes, indeed. This is not a joke. It's unfortunate that both of these characters are not very good for PvP. It's a bit of a bummer. I would have loved to see at least one of them be good for PvP, but I will say they are both so good for PvE content, so good for ABX, so good for World Boss, good to really good for squad battle. So they really take over that side, that half of the game, to the point where I think that they're both straight up better than Captain America. Captain America definitely has more PvP value, but in terms of PvE value, I think they both outclass Captain America. I mean, Captain America can barely do stage 99. Yes, he's an amazing striker, but tier 2 Professor X can do World Boss. I actually might move Professor X above Magneto. I'm not quite sure, but they're basically only second to the Kings up here, and then Sharon Rogers. Sharon Rogers is basically the only one that can hold these guys off because of her insane burst damage, and then the rest of it just sort of plays out. So yeah, I'm really curious to see and to hear what you think of my sort of reshuffling of the tier list. I realized, and as I was reshuffling it, that there's a lot of movement that you can make sort of here, kind of, but there really isn't a lot of movement here. And I found that there was sort of a wall here, interestingly, at the end of Heroic, where I was like, man, like She-Hulk is so much better than Punisher. Nebula is so much better than Beast and Killmonger. There's just such a huge gap between the bottom characters here and the top characters here for any of the classes. Like compare, maybe not Wasp, but compare like Magic or Crystal to Star-Lord. There's no question which character is way better for most content. So it's interesting to see that that's sort of happening, that you have a decent chunk of characters that are just far and above better. It's also not a coincidence that most of the characters here cannot get to level 70, so that is also something to consider. There are some characters here who can get to level 70, like Star-Lord, like Rocket, like Moon Girl, Hydro Man, Baron Zemo, Wave, Groot. There's definitely some, there's a few. But for the most part, that is, I think, what's holding a lot of these characters back. Also the fact that they haven't been worked on in years, except for the ones that have been released recently and just not up to the power level of other characters. Also, one more time, if you have a tier 3 Scarlet Witch and you want to record some content and send it to me and have it featured in a video, just email it to me with a Google Drive link or something like that, or upload it to YouTube and send me the YouTube link. I would love to feature you. Thank you so much for that. And without further ado, yeah, hit me up in the comments down below. You can find this tier list on Discord. You can find it in the description down below. It's part of the Master Guides document spreadsheet thing. In the meantime, I will be washing my hands. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.